Welcome back to The Drift. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the North Atlantic Monster Shark Tournament, and the expert on that is right here, DJ Stetson.
How you doing today?
DJ, welcome.
Welcome.
Tell me about this tournament. So this thing started in 1987 out on OB on the Vineyard.
Out on OB.
Right? The capital of shark craziness.
It really was back in the day.
Right.
At one point in time, it was one of the largest offshore tournaments in the world when I got involved. And yeah,
How long ago was that?
I got involved, I want to say 12, 13 years ago now.
Okay.
I was friends with, well, my brother-in-law ex-brother-in-law got me involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I met this guy named Steve James. And Steve was a guy that ran the tournament since, I think, 1996 when he took over.
Right.
And he turned it into basically one of the biggest tournaments in the world. Brought a lot of credibility to, the tournament itself, but also to sustainable fishing. And he was a tireless advocate for sustainable fishing. So we turned it into a not-for-profit event. And we've tried to donate to various organizations that support the concept of sustainable fishing.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me more about sustainable fishing and the management of that.
Sustainable fishing is basically where you harvest with techniques and procedures that don't impact the overall fishery. So you're not depleting the fishing resource. You're taking, it's all about balance, I guess is what it comes down to. You can harvest without making a big impact in the fishery itself. And that's what sustainable fishing is. No fisherman wants to wipe out the fishery entirely because then he wipes out fishing.
Of course not.
So it's, like I said, it's all about a balance. And in order to do that, you have to have a lot of knowledge and a lot of science, and we incorporate that with the tournament. The tournament is a sport fishing endeavor first and foremost, but it provides invaluable amount of science.
And talk about that a little bit. So there are scientists at the weigh-in, at
Yes,
the conclusion,
correct.
right? When the animals come in, they're weighed. And to back up a little bit more, you have very strict catch standards.
Very strict, yes. Well, the United States has some of the strictest catch sizes in the world, and we at Monster Shark take that to a whole new level. They increased the size limits to Mako shark. So Mako shark is now 83 inches for female and 71 inches for the male shark in order to be retained. I believe they wanted a 80 to 85% reduction in retention last year.
Right.
And the United States achieved 90%.
Okay.
So versus where we were in the past, we've actually released 90% of the Makos that we were keeping.
Yeah, and you're, Boston Big Game, the folks that get involved with your tournament, these guys aren't out there looking to just like deplete. Let's get the smaller, they want to do it right.
They really want to do it right. And like I said, our catch limits are higher than even the federal standards. So we don't want to see every boat coming back with a shark. That's not the way the tournament works. Right. Historically, we maintain, I believe, a 97 to a 95% release rate annually. So 97 to 95% of the sharks that are actually hooked in our tournament are released back alive into the fishery.
So the rules are created by the National Marine Fishery Services nationally, and in Massachusetts, who dictates the rules?
You have the Division of Marine Fisheries, and that's Greg Skomal's involved in that. I'm sure a lot of people know that name.
Right. He's the guy
He's the guy that's tagging all the sharks.
He's the guy from the Vineyard who's tagging all the
Yes,
sharks.
sir. Yes,
and
sir.
yeah, we hope to have Greg on an upcoming episode. He'd be great.
Greg is a great
chat.
guy. He's a great interview. I'm fascinated by his research. I've actually had the privilege of being involved in some of that research with the
Greg,
tournament.
Mr. Tag
Yes.
and Release, is a proponent of...
It's funny you say that because I like to say Greg cut his teeth on the shark tournament. We started in 1987, and he was involved from the get-go.
Okay.
He realized that this tournament was an invaluable resource for data. So he's been involved collecting data for a long, long time. Greg has kind of, like I said, he faded out a little bit, and he's doing the tagging now,
Right.
which is where his research is. But we have a lot of great scientists come down from NOAA. Lisa Natanson, she's been involved with the tournament for, I think, as long as Greg.
So she's with NOAA.
She's
a
with NOAA.
scientist who comes to the tournament.
Yes.
And is involved in the dissection of the
Yes,
animals?
she dissects the animals. They do a lot of research. She brings a team of scientists down from various academia, and they do all kinds of research and experiments and stuff. It's truly amazing.
That's a huge plus.
It
So
really
that's-
is.
So many people think, and I think they have, if you've never been to a shark tournament or to this shark tournament, I think everyone's got that image of from the movie Jaws, right? When the big old shark's hanging up, and they're dissecting it and they're pulling out feet and tires and everything else. There's an image there. So I think a lot of folks don't understand the science behind it all and why that is so important. And let's just face it, there are some people out there who just don't want us to fish.
That's very true.
Period.
Yes, that's very, very true. And like I said, you need a certain amount of knowledge and to do this kind of thing. It's all about maintaining a balance, and the United States has some of the best fishery management in the world.
We sure do.
And we have the best fishery science, as far as I'm concerned, in the world. And it's all because of people like Greg and people like Lisa, and they really take it to the next level. But we try to help them with that and be as helpful as we can in the learning and in the knowledge process, because the more we know, the better off we can coexist, the better we can understand the relative ratios and the stock assessment and stuff like that. So it's a learning process still to this day.
Yeah.
And I'm truly fascinated by it. So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's an exciting, and it's certainly an exciting thing to watch. I've seen some of your crews roll out, some of your teams roll out. They're impressive folk.
Yes, yes.
They're on some pretty decent sized vessel. Actually, to that, what is sort of the size vessel?
It's funny. It goes from 20 footers to 60 footers and everything in between. The biggest shark in the tournament, as a matter of fact, it was a 1,221 pound Mako shark, was caught on a 24-foot boat.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't even
Not
imagine.
even say we need a bigger boat. All right, we won't go there. But anyways, they could have used a bigger boat.
I think when they caught the shark and won the tournament, they did get a bigger boat.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To that, what are some of the what are the prizes? What are the
prizes? It all depends on how many boats. But last year we gave away $60,000 in cash and prizes.
Wow. You don't have to catch the biggest shark to win the tournament.
No, you can catch two smaller sharks that beat that. Yeah, it's a lot of strategy.
Yeah.
And like I love talking strategy with the guys. Like, where are you fishing? Depending on what they're targeting, they go in different spots. And a lot of guys are saying the Makos are showing up down south at our favorite fishing spots. I don't want to give away too much.
And then they go north.
Yeah, exactly. Then they go north for the poor beagle.
Tell me about strategy in this. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist. However, I understand there might be a brain surgeon involved.
There is a brain surgeon involved. He's a good friend of mine, Matt. He's been involved with the tournament for a long time. Now he's our MC.
Okay.
He's the man with the mic, and yeah, he's got a great, colorful personality, and he's well informed about the sharks. He's been a fisherman for a long time. He was a friend of Steve's.
Now you're running the event, so obviously you can't be out hunting the shark.
Well, it's funny you say that. I'm going to go fishing tomorrow, I think,
All right.
just for fun and see what's out there. And but I'm not part of weighing in. I weigh the shark, so I really can't weigh in my own shark. I'll take you through the timeline. So Thursday night, we kick it off. We have a captain's meeting at West Island Marina, and that's from 4 to 8. And then fishing starts the following day. So Friday morning at 6 o'clock, lines are in. And they can fish all day Friday. And if you don't catch a fish, you can fish through the night into Saturday.
Right.
So fishing concludes Saturday afternoon, and then we have a big awards banquet. We have live bands, we have raffles, we have auctions. We have, but it's quite the party.
Yeah.
And then the following day we have basically a going away Bloody Mary cocktail hour.
Probably needed after the party.
Yeah, some people need it, some people don't.
Right. We don't cook up any Mako there, do we?
Actually, it's we do. We serve some at our banquet.
Fantastic.
Depending on what comes in, if it's a thresher, we serve thresher.
Talk about that. Talk about good eating shark.
So we only catch 3 species of shark in the tournament. They're all edible.
Very important to note here.
Yes. all edible. And
Great white, great whites,
no great white.
not allowed.
Not allowed.
Protected.
And doing well, resurging actually, which is fantastic.
Right.
And that one indicator is a great sign for the status of our fishery, because in order to have apex predators like great whites and in the numbers that we do, it means that every level under that of the food chain is thriving as well.
Right.
So I think it's a tremendous indicator of how well our fisheries are doing currently. And it's just amazing, like to see the number of sharks that are coming back.
Yeah.
But obviously everyone is talking about the seals.
Right. Good. I was going to touch on that. So there are some that say that for 50 years there's been protection of mammals.
Indeed.
And under that protection are seals. And there are some who say, well, if the seals bask along the shore, and this is food for sharks, so the sharks come in closer to shore, for their eats, right? To take on the seals. So some say maybe we should lax those regulatory requirements on the seals and allow for the hunt of seals. What are your thoughts on that? If the seals weren't there, if the bait wasn't there, if the food wasn't there for the shark, would the shark stay further offshore? I guess that's the question.
The sharks themselves, by nature and their hunting patterns, they want to come close to the shore, because that's where they feel that they're most successful with their hunting techniques.
Right.
Once the seal comes into the water, he gets ambushed by the shark. So, but a lot, I think, what we see here is the smaller 10 to 14 foot sharks that are transitioning from juvenile to adult, and they're really not experienced hunters as far as seals go. So that's what I think a lot. You have an amazing amount of sharks off the Cape right now.
Right.
But I think that the bigger sharks, they obviously can't get into the shallower water, so they're staying out a little bit deeper. They're still right offshore.
I think Greg has tagged. I just saw some news that he has tagged like 3 or 4 great whites already this season.
I think it's 12.
12.
Yes.
All right.
I think.
Wow.
I'll have to check on that, but
Okay.
I believe it's 12. And they're focusing more research inside the bay. The first couple, I think he had a 5-year research, program that he was doing with Atlantic White Shark Conservancy.
Right.
And a lot of their research was on the Outer Cape, Chatham, Wellfleet,
Sure.
all those areas, Truro. And now they're focusing their research more in the bay. And they're finding an incredible amount of great white sharks in the bay, too.
Okay. But to your point, you would say not due to seal population.
Well, it is. I mean, the sharks are hunting seals. So more seals, more food, more sharks.
Right.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
I mean, these animals are endangered. So in order to bring back a population, you need something for that population to eat.
And for the seal, it's natural migration, right?
It
this
really
just
is.
Nature. This is how it rolls,
And
they were here before we were here.
They were here before we were here. And when we protected them in 1972, it started off as a slow recovery. And through the 80s, it was slow, and through the 90s. But then in the 2000s, they really started, repopulating, and we really saw a resurgence of the seal. And then a couple years after that, surprise, surprise, who's here? The great white. But
right.
it all makes sense. But like I said, it's an amazing indicator of the status of our fishery.
Now you got your teams release between 95 and 98% of their
Correct.
catch, which is an incredibly high release rate. Talk about that a little bit. And that's tough for a fisherman. And it shows that you have responsible fishermen.
It does. It does.
Everybody wants to take the trophy home.
They do, and that's everyone wants to, cash in, obviously.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And we're a tournament, and we get that. But these people also have a tremendous respect for the sea, being fishermen, and it's like I say about hunters. No one gives back to conservation land like hunters do. And the fishermen are the same way. They're very concerned with what's going on. They're very concerned with protecting their resources and stuff like that, and protecting their right to fish. So that's where we try to help them out with that. We want it to be an event that could, make fishing great again. That's what we tried to do, And in order to do that, you have to get involved on a whole bunch of different levels. Fishing, as I learned, is very, very political. It's not just on the national level, but it's internationally too.
Right.
and that Magna-Stevenson Act from 1972, perhaps it does need to be addressed a little bit. But I think on a whole that the United States does a tremendous job at regulating our fisheries.
Right.
If only the world would catch up to what we're trying to do here, globally, we'd be way better off than we are.
Yeah, we need the world to catch up in a lot of areas, right?
We really do. And you know, a lot of people take shark tournaments to task because they're high profile. You know, they see a picture of a dead shark and they have a lot to say. Everyone has everyone has an opinion, good or bad.
Exactly.
You know, but then I read reports from Greenpeace that say like the Spaniards and the Spanish fleet and the Portuguese fleet is taking 25,000 Mako sharks a year.
It's huge.
And you know, they're doing long line, they're doing purse seine, you know, they're doing gill netting, and these are not sustainable fishing practices, and that's not what we're about as a tournament.
And I will say, if not for your tournament, we wouldn't be here right now on the Drift discussing this.
Really?
So we wouldn't be talking about these kinds of issues that impact the fisheries and the shark fisheries and the positives of the catch and catch and release and how important that is.
It really is. I mean, I think as a fisherman, one of the greatest gifts you can give to another fisherman is letting it go and allowing someone to have the experience that you had.
On Buzzards Bay in Fairhaven is West Island Marina.
Correct.
And they are your host marina. They actually is they're our home port, which
That's
is great.
fantastic.
That's where we keep
Yeah.
our vessel and
It's
have been for a long time. Great group of people. Tell me about West Island Marina and Off the Hook, which is the bar and grill associated with the marina.
You know, I hear a lot of great reviews from people.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And I've been down there a couple of times, and what I will say, it's like a hidden gem. It's amazing down there. And Jim and Mary
Great people.
have done a fantastic job,
Yeah.
and they've been so accommodating working with us. We're really looking forward to having a great time. And people are so excited about the new venue.
That venue, so West Island and Off the Hook, it's got that classic sort of Cape Cod island feel about it.
Since we left the vineyard, that everyone kind of wants that vineyard feel. And it's really hard to find. You can't replicate that place because it was the perfect location. It was the perfect venue for the tournament.
I know you need to get back to doing what you do, obviously, and getting the tournament together. Tell me about where the funds go. So just tell me again where the monies go. This, nobody's profiting.
Nobody's profiting at all.
Somebody is. The nonprofits are profiting.
Well, like I said, we all wanted to continue Steve's legacy. So it's a not-for-profit tournament, and we're all volunteers. So we donate to organizations and institutions that believe in the concept of sustainable fishing. So that being said, we Steve James Scholarship Fund we've donated to. We've donated to the School of Marine Science and Technology, the Recreational Fishing Alliance, the Massachusetts Shark Research Program, and Greg Skomal. And we actually did a couple of shark buoys. So
I read about that. So off of New Bedford and where else?
Well, we did one off of New Bedford, and that was in 2016. There hadn't been one in Buzzards Bay yet.
So that's a shark detection buoy?
Yes, like all those sharks that we were talking about that Greg tags. So they put in
that reads the tag.
Yes, an acoustic tag.
Wow.
So that shark has to get within 200 to 250 yards of the buoy, and then it pings, records what shark was there, when he was there, and
It's phenomenal.
yes, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
So we did one in Buzzards Bay, and I went out and I put the buoy out with Greg and all those guys, and it was fantastic. It was a great day. So I grew up in Marshfield. So then I called the harbor master in Marshfield, and I was like, "Hey, Mike, we just did a buoy down in New Bedford. I can put you, in contact with the guy that handles this stuff."
Very cool.
So we put it out 2016, the buoys went out. And I think in the first year they recorded like 7 to 9 sharks. Well, now the one buoy in Fieldston recorded almost 180 detections last year.
Wow.
So of all the Marshfield buoys, you're talking about an increase in detections of 1,100% over 2 years.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. So,
so that's growth.
Yeah. Oh, that's growth.
That's growth. Obviously, growth of the population in the tagged sharks.
And understanding.
Right.
But let me get back to like what that means, though. I mean, now you're getting all these sharks. So you have all these detections and all this data of all these sharks being around. What it really says is how evolved the great white shark is as a hunter. Because think about it. You have all these sharks around. and you have an interaction maybe once a year, if that.
Right.
I mean, last year we lost somebody, but before that, it was 1936 that it happened. And I mean, these animals are fantastic hunters. They're not indiscriminately attacking a human. When they do, it's a mistake.
Right.
So it actually speaks to how evolved the white shark is at seeking and hunting his prey. It's pretty amazing. So that being said, I mean, with more people in the water, more sharks in the water, these things are unfortunately going to happen. But it's now you get a better idea of how many sharks you have around, where they're showing up, where you can maybe put your lookout stations and stuff like that. So
that's great.
Yeah, it really gives you a better idea of the migratory patterns and, stuff like that, of where the relative ratios are showing up and, where you should keep an eye out for incidents.
DJ, I will tell you, I didn't expect to get such fascinating information from this podcast. I thought we could just kind of talk about some catching sharks and a shark tournament. But
well, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, the North Atlantic Monster Shark Tournament.
Come down, bring your kids. We love it. The kids are fascinated by this. So I get parents reaching out to me, that say, hey, my kids won't stop talking about the shark tournament.
Awesome.
It's Christmas, and they're talking about the shark tournament.
That's what it's all about, right?
And that's what it's all about to me. Trying to inspire the next generation of fishermen, of scientists, of shark enthusiasts. And that's what it's all about, is carrying on, So I really hope
DJ Stetson,
see you soon.
We are going to see you at the tournament.
Presented by Sociable, original social media programming.